Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Ladies and gentlemen, I put out a video for my Patreons and club members early this morning. And I thought that I'd go ahead and redo the video to publish it on YouTube because hopefully on this video I'll be a bit better composed. But I really want to talk to you about what the greatest threat to the United States is. Many people would say that our greatest threats are our so-called enemies, or geopolitical issues going around the world. That one of our greatest threats would be like shortages of food in the physical form, which that is a very big threat. I'm not sure how many of you know that we lost a majority or a very big part, not a majority, I think it was like 40% of our red wheat harvest or crop this year so far due to freezing. Like what just happened in Texas. A weather event of whatever kind. It could be, freezing weather event. It could be tornado, natural disasters, etc. But it's not, ladies and gentlemen. The greatest threat that our nation faces is the economy and the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve / government. The economy, ladies and gentlemen, is pretty much dead. It's not going to be what it was prior to this health crisis. It's not going to be what it was. Most businesses that closed their doors in the last year will not reopen. And most of those businesses are mom and pop shops, are middle class businesses owned by middle class people, just average people like you and me, trying to raise a family, trying to send their kids to school, trying to keep a roof over their head. They're gone. We had really good news here a few days ago that we added 375,000 jobs to the labor market. But they failed to mention that of that 375,000 jobs, that 75% or greater, I think maybe it was like 85% of those jobs were in the service field. For example, waiters, waitresses, bartenders, jobs like that, low-paying jobs. They failed to mention that in the headlines. They also failed to mention that at the same time that we gained 375,000 jobs, that 770, I believe it was, 700,000 plus people filed initial unemployment claims, meaning that they just filed them, that they just left the workforce. They also failed to mention that although the unemployment rate is at about 6% or so, they failed to mention that there's over 100 million people that have quit looking for work. They don't tell us these things, ladies and gentlemen, because they know what we're headed toward. It's for example, let's say that there was a meteor headed towards Earth, and the government knew about it, and it was going to be a meteor that was going to destroy half of the population. Do you think that the government would tell you anything? Do you think that they would alert the public that there was a meteor headed towards Earth? No, they wouldn't. They would not. They would just let it happen and they would protect themselves. Why do you think they don't tell us what's about to happen in the stock market and in our financial markets? Why don't they tell us that when the bond market blows up, that the stock market is going to blow up and that everyone is going to be destitute except for the 1%, because they are the ones that know what's going on? Why do you think that the smart money has been getting out of stocks and letting the retail investors get into stocks? Why do you think Warren Buffett pulled just about all of his money out of the stock market, if not all, and is sitting on $125 billion worth of cash? Because he thinks everything's fine? He may say that he thinks everything's fine and that America's in great shape when he's being interviewed, but he knows better. That's why he's sitting on cash, because he's waiting for the bloodbath to occur so that he can come in and buy everything up on the cheap. Ladies and gentlemen, this cannot go on forever. This is what you have to understand. Right now, I believe we're in 1928, 1929. Meaning that either in about a year or so, or this year, everything is just going to go away. All of the wealth that you have in the stock market, that you have in bonds, that you have in 401ks, etc., all of that paper wealth is going to go away. And you're not ever going to be able to realize the wealth that you've had put in the stock market. Or your 401k, or if you're in the military, your TSP, if you have bonds, all these things. The Federal Reserve knows what's going on. But what do they do, ladies and gentlemen? Not only do they intervene in the markets to keep it propped up, but and when I say the Federal Reserve, I mean the Federal Reserve and the government. To me, they're one and all. They're one, okay? They send the people a measly $1,400 paycheck or a stimulus check, whatever you want to call it. It's really a bribe. They send the people a measly $1,400 check so that they can stay on that first rung of the ladder. My question is this: where is that money coming from? Where is the money? Have you ever thought about that? If the Federal Reserve can just print money out of thin air, and I know for some of you that are more involved in finances and things like that, I know that the Federal Reserve doesn't print it. It's really the banks, but it's with the blessing of the Federal Reserve. But that's for another video, okay? But if the Federal Reserve can just print money out of thin air, why don't they just print everything that we need and we can all be rich? Have you ever asked yourself that question? If the Federal Reserve can just cover the government's expenses by printing money, why do we even have to pay taxes? Have you ever asked yourself that? Why don't they just send us all $1 million check and get it over with? Because, ladies and gentlemen, what that would do is that would advance what's going to happen and make it happen a lot quicker. And instead, they rather do it slowly. They rather do it slowly so that they can keep control of their sheep and their cattle. That's what's going on. The Federal Reserve cannot do anything to stop what's going to happen. You cannot continue to manipulate nature without nature finding a way back to its means. I was telling my Patreons and club members that you cannot fool mathematics. Math is math. 1 + 1 = 2. Unless you live in a different dimension or in a different timeline than where we are right now, 1 + 1 = 2. Math is math. You cannot fool it forever. Eventually, it will give you the right answer. And the right answer is not what we have. What we have is not natural. So we will revert back to our means. But the question is this: are you going to be ready? Have you seen the light? Have you realized that the only reason they print money is to keep us controlled, to keep us from revolting, to keep us from getting so angry that we'll go, and get rid of them with pitchforks? It's the only reason that they're sending the stimulus checks. They could care less about you, ladies and gentlemen. They could care less about you. I would say that at least 95% of the 537 that are sitting on the Hill in the White House care nothing about us. They could care less. These are people that have been sucking off of the government's teat. And when I say government, I mean us. They've been sucking off of the population's teat for decades. We have people that have been in Congress and Senate for decades, 30, 40, 50 years. And what has changed? But now everything's going to be all right because we're going to get a stimulus check. When in another 3 months, we're going to be begging for another one. I guarantee it. But this is their plan, ladies and gentlemen. Their plan is to get us hooked. Their plan is to get us hooked on that stimulus. Give me my stimmy. People even have a nickname for it now, stimmy. Give me my stimmy. I need my fix. That's their plan, is to get us hooked on that. But why? Why, ladies and gentlemen? Because they know that they are losing control of the stock market and the bond market. More so the bond market. I am convinced now that the Federal Reserve / government has something to do with keeping the bond market under control after what I saw on Friday, where for part of the day, the Dow Jones was in negative 300 to 400 point territory, and then it finished the day 500 plus points above with a yield, with a 10-year yield that was just going up and up and up. They are practicing yield curve control, and that will not last forever. They are on their last play. This is their last little bag of tricks that they have. They have one more. Excuse me, they do have one more. But once this little bag of tricks falls apart, they are going to have to rely and or create a bigger crisis than what we have been through in the last year. A big, big crisis is coming our way. But why? Well, I can't tell you what it is or when it'll happen. But what I think is that after the next big crisis, they're going to say, ladies and gentlemen, good citizens of the United States, we can help you. But the only way we can help you is if you accept the money that we send you on your smartphone. It's a lot easier than carrying cash. You won't lose it, and it'll be protected. And we'll be able to send it to you directly from the Federal Reserve without anyone having to pass a law through Congress or the Senate. And you will get it directly. And people will be like, yes, let me see, I need to feed my kids. Okay, I know it's wrong, but let's do it. Let's go ahead and do it. Because I need to feed my kids. I need to keep a roof over our heads. People will be so desperate that they'll be like, yes, give it to me. Send it to me now. And then when they send it to them or send it to us, we will realize in short order that what we just committed to was two things. Number one, that the Federal Reserve / government now has full control over what we can and cannot purchase. That they can use our browsing history to determine whether we should be allowed to go into a Sportsman's Warehouse type of deal, like a Dick's, Cabela's, to buy Freedom Beans or to buy boomsticks. They'll be able to determine by looking at our browsing history whether we can go somewhere and purchase something somewhere. And in addition to that, they'll be able to determine how fast we have to spend that money. Well, good citizen, if you don't spend the $1,000 that I just sent you and put in your electronic wallet, if you don't spend it in a week, then that $1,000 is going to lose 10% of its purchasing power, and it'll turn into $900. If you keep it a week later, it'll turn into $800 until it's all gone. So no one will be able to save. That's what I think that guy from the World Economic Forum, that's what I think he meant when he said that by 2030, you'll own nothing, but you'll be happy. Because if that's what we go into, if we go into some kind of an electronic or cryptocurrency that's centralized by the Federal Reserve, kind of a fiat currency, if we go into that, we will have no choice. We will have to spend it on what we're told that we need to spend it on. But they won't be able to implement this until the next very big crisis. And we can wait for it. It'll come eventually. See, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have to worry about a country that's 9,000 miles away doing something crazy. And if that did happen, the government would love that because they would see that as an opportunity to print more money. All they can do is print money. And once the bond market, once they can't do anything more to control the bond market, then we'll see the next huge crisis hit. And then they're going to come to the rescue. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen? Most Americans will go with it. Most Americans will go with it. So prepare yourselves. Because the biggest threat to our nation are not the powers outside of our nation, but the powers within our nation. That's the biggest threat to our nation. I think it was Lincoln that said it. I forgot his quote, but I think it was Lincoln that said that we never have to worry about an invading army. An invading army will never destroy the United States of America. The destruction of the United States of America will come from within. And here we are. And most people will suffer. Even the best prepared person will suffer to a certain extent, because it is going to be life-changing. Ladies and gentlemen, when the stock market crashes and the financial system crashes, not the economy's already crashed. The economy's over. I was watching a video here the other day with this lady. I don't know what her name was, but she was touting on how the economy is doing so great. I'm like, what planet do you live in? Maybe she meant the economy as like the stock market. Maybe that's what she was referring to by the economy. But I was like, what planet do you live in, lady? Do you have eyes? And that's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. The people that make decisions for us, they don't have the same eyes that we have. They don't go to the supermarket to buy their own food. They don't fill up their own vehicles. They don't know what it's like to only have $180 left in the bank for the rest of the month. They don't know what it's like to have to stretch, $100 to feed a family of 4 for 2 weeks. They don't know what that's like. They've never known what that's like. And they never will. And do you really think that before the market goes boom, do you really think that they're not going to protect themselves? Do you really think they're not protecting themselves right now? By the actions that they're taking? By the things that they're purchasing? Why in the world? Why in the world? I'm not touting gold or silver or cryptocurrencies or anything like that. But why in the world, if gold is such a barbarous relic, have central banks been buying more of it in the last 2 years than they have in the last 50 years? Why? Why in the world, if decentralized, not centralized. Why in the world, if decentralized cryptocurrencies are such an evil thing, why are banks now jumping on board? Why are hedge funds buying them? Why are hedge funds that control retirement accounts buying them? Why is that? Because they know what's coming, and they don't want you to know. They want you to suffer so that they can keep control over you. Excuse me. I think this was a better video than the one I put up on Patreon. So Patreons, my apologies. I just need to put this out here, ladies and gentlemen. Start preparing yourselves. If you're watching this video and you haven't visited the Alaska Prepper channel and this is your first time here and you're still here, first of all, thank you. But you need to prepare yourselves. You need to realize that no one is coming to your rescue. No one. You need to realize that the government is a farce. The government is only here for government. They do not have a list with your name on it to go into a bunker should something happen. Your name's not on that list, ladies and gentlemen. Unless you're a cousin or a husband or a wife or a father or a mother or something like that to one of these politicians that sit atop, your name's not on that list. So what makes you think that they're going to take care of you? Just look at what happened in Texas. Look at how many people passed away in Texas because they were cold. Where was the government for them? Where were they? It's going to happen again. So if you're not preparing and if you're not prepared, you need to get on board. Build your own infrastructures. Build your own infrastructures. That way you can have a plan on how to get your own water, your own food, your self-defense, your own medicine. Get those things that you need on an everyday basis and get them in bulk. Because I'm not a prophet and I didn't have a dream last night, but I have eyes. And what I see, ladies and gentlemen, is that this cannot go on forever. It cannot go on forever. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me leave it at that. I'm getting redundant now, so thank you very much for joining in. I truly do appreciate you spending a little bit of time here today. Remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place. Ladies and gentlemen, it will be. We're going to get through this. And the world will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. I'm Alaska Prepper, and I'm out. God bless you guys.